Unlike Ford, which seemed caught off guard by the sudden market shift, Chevrolet had meticulously planned every detail. It wasn't just about building a better engine, it was about reshaping the narrative around mid-size trucks. Chevrolet's research and development team had predicted a growing consumer demand for more power without sacrificing efficiency. Critics pointed out that Ford's complacency had led to this situation. Instead of innovating, they had relied on brand loyalty and legacy. Chevrolet, on the other hand, had actively sought to meet the evolving demands of a new generation of truck owners, those who wanted efficiency without sacrificing power. Damage control was immediate. Ford's communications team released a statement explaining that the CEO's emotional response was due to his passion for the brand and commitment to innovation. Yet the internet was unforgiving. Memes continued to circulate, portraying the CEO as out of touch and incapable of leading the company through a crisis. Behind the scenes, the board of directors debated whether a leadership change was necessary. Some argued that the CEO's vulnerability made him more relatable, while others worried it signaled weakness at a time when Ford needed strong leadership. The decision was made to retain him, but his public appearances were drastically reduced. In contrast, Chevrolet's leadership remained steadfast. The company's president released a brief, confident statement thanking customers for their overwhelming support. The message was clear: Chevrolet was on top and they planned to stay there. Ford's stock took a hit, dropping nearly 10% within a week. Investors worried that Ford's inability to match Chevrolet's innovation would lead to long-term losses. In contrast, Chevrolet's parent company, General Motors, saw a surge in shares reflecting consumer confidence in their strategic direction. Automotive blogs published speculative pieces on whether Ford's hybrid Ranger could realistically compete. Some suggested that even if Ford managed to rush the hybrid to market, it wouldn't matter. Consumers had already shifted their perception. Chevrolet was now the leader in performance trucks. To regain ground, Ford needed more than just a product. They needed to restore consumer trust. They announced a series of community events where engineers would discuss upcoming models directly with potential buyers. While the effort was commendable, it felt reactive rather than proactive. Chevrolet did not rest on its laurels. Rather than coast on their recent success, they announced a new initiative: special customization packages for the Colorado, allowing buyers to tailor their trucks for towing, off-roading, or urban commuting. The packages included upgrades like reinforced suspensions, skid plates, and enhanced towing hitches. The move was strategic. By giving consumers more control over their vehicle's configuration, Chevrolet reinforced the idea that the Colorado was not just a one-size-fits-all truck, it was adaptable, just like the modern consumer. Ford's traditional approach of offering set trims now appeared outdated. Even as Ford rushed to finalize the hybrid Ranger, Chevrolet was expanding the conversation. They launched a campaign highlighting how the turbocharged engine not only performed, but lasted. Footage of endurance testing, where the engine operated at peak power for hundreds of hours without failure, was released. The message was simple: Chevrolet didn't just build a powerful truck, they built a reliable one. In a bid to steal back the spotlight, Ford made a bold announcement. They would introduce an all-electric Ranger within 18 months, a move intended to demonstrate their commitment to innovation. The announcement, however, raised more questions than answers. Skeptics pointed out that Ford's current electric projects were already behind schedule. How could they possibly deliver a competitive electric truck so soon? Consumers were divided. While some were excited about the idea of an electric Ranger, many remained skeptical. Ford's previous delays in delivering electric models made the promise feel hollow. In contrast, Chevrolet continued to position the Colorado as a truck that was ready now, not in a distant, uncertain future. Even President Trump weighed in, expressing support for American innovation but warning against making promises that couldn't be kept. His statement, while diplomatically neutral, hinted that Ford might be setting itself up for failure. The initial wave of sympathy for Ford's CEO faded quickly, replaced by growing frustration among brand loyalists. Longtime Ford owners questioned whether the company still had the innovative spirit that had once defined them. In truck enthusiast circles, discussions revolved around Chevrolet's ability to blend power with efficiency, a combination that Ford seemed to have overlooked. The buzz surrounding the electric Ranger announcement quickly cooled. Consumers wanted something tangible, and Chevrolet was delivering that. Dealerships reported that even former Ford customers were inquiring about the new Colorado, drawn by the consistent performance and rugged appeal. With Ford's reputation teetering and Chevrolet solidifying its lead, the automotive landscape was undergoing a radical shift. In a surprising turn of events, the Ford CEO announced his resignation on live television just hours after Chevrolet revealed their new 2.7-liter turbocharged engine. The announcement left industry experts stunned, as Chevy's innovative engine drew immediate praise, highlighting its power and efficiency. Social media erupted with reactions, with hashtags like #ChevyWins and #FordResigns trending nationwide. As Chevy celebrated their engineering breakthrough, Ford faced a crisis of leadership and strategy. The contrast between the two events couldn't have been more striking, one marked by innovation, the other by uncertainty. Now, how did one engine spark such chaos? What exactly made Chevy's engine so revolutionary? Why did it lead to Ford's CEO stepping down? Stay tuned as we break down the details and explore how this shakeup could impact the future of American trucks, and why the chief executive couldn't take it anymore. To understand what led to this emotional breakdown, we need to rewind just 48 hours. An internal memo had leaked, warning Ford executives of a potentially irreversible market share decline. The content was grim weak first-quarter sales, a sharp drop in consumer confidence, and a looming threat of mass layoffs at the Dearborn plant. At the heart of this crisis was a new tariff on aluminum and steel, reintroduced by President Trump as part of his renewed America First agenda. The memo revealed heated discussions within Ford's boardroom. Should they continue with the EcoBoost lineup, or take the risky path of fast-tracking an incomplete inline-six engine? The pressure mounted. The acting chairman feared that their mid-size truck would become obsolete. Meanwhile, across the border, Prime Minister Mark Carney had just announced a new round of subsidies for mid-size electric vehicles, increasing the strain on Ford's strategy. Personal stakes only heightened the tension. The chief executive came from a family deeply tied to Ford's legacy. His grandfather had worked at the Rouge complex for nearly 4 decades. Expectations weighed heavily on his shoulders. Then came the news that Chevrolet was set to reveal a game-changing engine. Advisors suggested postponing Ford's announcement, but the chief executive insisted on facing the public directly. As he spoke, his phone vibrated with messages. Chevrolet had just unveiled a turbocharged 4-cylinder that matched the torque of Ford's V6. His voice faltered as the realization hit. Ford had been blindsided. Chevrolet's new 2.7L turbocharged 4-cylinder was not just another engine. It was the result of 5 years of innovation, designed from the ground up to challenge traditional norms. At its core was a forged bottom end and a dual-volet turbocharger, a unique configuration that separated exhaust pulses to reduce lag. This design allowed the engine to spool faster, generating immediate torque. Chevrolet engineers called it the sledgehammer blowdown effect, likening the force to a pair of synchronized hammers driving the turbo at every pulse. This engine wasn't just a technological marvel, it was a strategic masterstroke. Chevrolet launched it at a time when Ford was already struggling to compete in the mid-size truck market. The high-output variant of the engine delivered 310 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque, numbers Ford's inline-six couldn't match. To make matters worse, Chevrolet offered the engine as a standard option on all Colorado trims, removing any premium that Ford had planned to charge for its upgraded Ranger engine. The most shocking revelation came when Chevrolet revealed their torture testing. They ran the engine non-stop at peak torque and horsepower for days on end. The cooling system, driven by a brushless electric water pump, maintained optimal temperature even when the turbo reached glowing red heat. The engine's durability was undeniable, proving it could endure long hauls and heavy towing without breaking a sweat. In contrast, Ford's prototype inline-six struggled to maintain power during heat endurance tests, often slipping into limp mode. This was more than just an engineering victory for Chevrolet. It was a direct challenge to Ford's long-standing dominance in the mid-size segment. As the numbers poured in from media and consumer reports, the verdict was clear. Chevrolet had struck a devastating blow. See, we dug deep into the details of Chevy's game-changing engine to show you why it's shaking up the industry. Now you've got the inside scoop. All we ask in return is a quick like and subscribe to keep up with more exclusive insights. Panic set in as Ford's leadership scrambled to develop a response plan. At midnight, the board convened an emergency meeting, dialing in investors from around the globe. In Singapore, where it was already morning, financial analysts watched as Ford's stock fell 8% within hours. A single-day loss not seen since the financial crisis of 2008. Plant managers across the Midwest received vague instructions to maintain morale while the company assessed its next steps. The gravity of the situation was not lost on President Trump, who addressed the issue in a press conference. He reiterated his commitment to American-made engines but hinted that Ford needed to build stronger or risk being left behind. Mark Carney, on the other hand, saw this as an opportunity. Canada's auto industry, benefiting from new green energy policies, was poised to capitalize on Ford's potential downturn. As Ford's leadership deliberated, the anxiety among workers grew. Social media was flooded with videos from Kansas City's assembly line, where workers speculated about their jobs. Some even posted heartfelt messages pleading for answers. Unsure whether their futures were secure, the union hotline was overwhelmed with calls, and local representatives were left with few answers. The company had a few options: expedite the Hybrid Ranger program, seek a partnership with a South Korean battery supplier, or attempt a radical redesign of their current engines. None of the choices were risk-free. In a last-ditch effort, Ford's marketing team launched a campaign emphasizing tradition and legacy. The message was simple: Ford trucks had endured for decades, and they would endure again. But the public wasn't convinced. As word spread of Chevrolet's triumph, many questioned whether Ford was clinging to nostalgia rather than embracing innovation. In the weeks that followed, focus groups revealed a disturbing trend: brand loyalty was wavering. Consumers wanted innovation, not just heritage. Ford was faced with a brutal reality: evolve or become obsolete. The immediate crisis had shaken Ford to its core, but Chevrolet's ascent was just beginning. The real question wasn't just how Ford would respond, but how Chevrolet planned to solidify its newfound dominance. As Ford scrambled for solutions, Chevrolet was already planning its next move, expanding the 2.7-liter reach into other models and markets. To understand how Chevy's victory might shape the future of the automotive industry, we need to look beyond just the engine. We need to understand the strategy behind it. As Ford's leadership scrambled to mitigate the fallout from their unexpected crisis, Chevrolet was already executing the next phase of its strategy.